So it is important to understand whether the customer is internal or external. So there are various ways to collect the voice of an customer. So there are few are the reactive ways and few are the proactive ways. So whenever we talk about the Six Sigma methodology, generally its focus is on proactive systems. So proactively, you should take up any process improvement, which is a key area or key where the KPI is not being made. So key process objective or key process indicator is not being made. Generally, that is being monitored and proactively the project is taken. So what are the reactive modes? Okay, sorry. So once you have that customer needs, there are three ways you can categorize the customer needs. Dr. Kano has explained it very beautifully. So what he says, there are three types of customer needs. So let us understand that. So let us understand the scales first or lines first, where there are two zones. Like there is a one line which goes across where the quality attributes are absent to present, and there is a one line is an y-axis, blue line, which goes towards up, where it says customer satisfaction low to high. Now the section below, what we call it as an unsatisfied zone for a customer, and section above is called as an satisfactory zone. So there is first need which is called as an must be need. So if you want to buy a TV, it should give you a picture and sound, etc. So that is a must be need to be in a business. Now, if that must be need is fulfilled, the satisfaction of a customer don't cross from a non-satisfaction zone to a satisfaction zone. Because when we go and buy TV or phone, etc., so there are must be needs, and those must be needs must be fulfilled to get that product. That is what is called as a must be need. Then there is the other type of need which is called as a satisfier, which is more the better. Means if I talk about the picture quality, so more quality. So I want always a good quality of a picture, good voice, good connectivity, good network is all of a more the better. So even we look at the car, so higher average, so more the better. So this generally we take up the projects in this zone, because the must be are the needs which have to be present to be in the business. But so once we are in the business, we need to improve our effectiveness and efficiency. That is why we take up generally a project where more the better. And there is a third category which is called as an delighter. Means the customer has not thought about it, and the provider or a producer is giving him that. So once you have a need of an customer, you must be able to understand that what type of need it is. To give you a simple example, the scenario is again a dynamic scenario. What is yesterday may not be today or may not be tomorrow. Give an example. My daughter was studying under 12. Suppose she was in 11th class, and she asked me for a good quality of phone with camera, etc., etc. So probably if I give her a phone, that is a delighter for her because it is not required. Now after passing her 12th, she got admission into an architecture college at Pune. Now she is staying at a hostel. So now what type of need it is now, which was delighter earlier, has become and must be for me. So she is asking the same phone. But when she was studying in 11th, it was a delighter for her. When she is asking it in a class after joining a hostel, so it is a must be for me. So I must be able to understand that, and it is always a dynamic situation. What is today may not be relevant today, tomorrow. But once you understand that need, you must be able to categorize that using this model, whether it is must be, higher the better, or a delighter for my customer. So once you understand that, So these are the few examples of an customer need: comfortable seat in airlines, discount in tickets of the airlines, safe landing at destination. Probably it is a must be. So ATM facility, big bazaar discount schemes, one-on-one T-shirts, holiday package at Singapore with Club Mahindra. The examples are slightly मतलब थोड़े साल पहले की है, 5-6. So what is happening? The Singapore trip that time was a delighter. So I have included that holiday at Singapore by Club Mahindra as a delighter. There are few examples of must be also, higher the better also, and delighters also. So there are various modes to understand the voice of a customer, which are the reactive modes and proactive modes. So what are the reactive modes? Reactive modes are generally customer complaints, help desk calls, sales data, so warranty claims or product returns, etc., etc. So it may happen that customer will not complain, but he will not buy. So if the sales data goes down, it is a reactive information also. So what are the proactive informations or proactive sources of collecting an information? Is probably interviews, focus groups, survey, customer visit, or market research, etc. So there are two ways of collecting a voice of customer, that is an reactive mode and proactive mode. So why it is important to understand the voice of an customer? Actually, just look at a cinema example. So you are planning to go for a movie. On what criteria you will select the movie? So probably review ratings, star cast, subject, who is the director, what is the type of a film, etc. Now you change your role. You are a cinema theater owner, and you are going on a holiday to Singapore, and you have a manager in India, and you are asking him to give him a MIS report of your business every day. What you will ask for as an owner or an producer? Probably you will ask for an what was an occupancy, any safety or incident, what is our next plan, what is our operating cost, and equipment operation status, etc. Now if you look at the customer needs and the owner's needs, they don't match with each other. So you as a customer, you have a different perspective, and as a producer, he is looking for different things. Now it is very important to translate that voice of a customer, what exactly customer wants, in our controllable factors. There is a tool which is called as an quality function deployment. So how does the quality function deployment helps us? The quality function deployment helps us understanding what a customer wants and how it has to be fulfilled. So basically, customer will give a rating, and based on that rating, how which of the controllable factor is relevant for that rating, and you have to work on that controllable factor so that the customer satisfaction will go up. At this moment only, there is a mathematics matlab, calculations hai, but let us understand only that there is a tool which convert the voice of customer to a controllable factor, which is called CTQ. Once we have that CTQ, we go and build up a charter. So what does the charter clarifies that? It clarifies that what is expected out of a team, keep the team focused and align on the project priorities, and transfer the project from champion to the improvement team. Basically, when you are writing any project charter, the champion is more involved, because a champion will outline everything, or a owner will outline everything, that what he wants. Okay, so let us go and look at the charter. So charter has got 6 characters: business case, problem and goal statement, benefit from the projects, project scope, roles, and milestones. So let us start with the one by one. So what is business case? Arey baap re. मिनट है, हैंग हो गया शायद. Hello, is
Yes,
my
sir.
screen visible now?
No, sir. No.
No. Okay, एक मिनट है. हाँ,
Now
आ
it
रहा है,
is.
आ रहा है, आ रहा है, आ रहा है. हाँ. Okay. Is it visible?
Yes.
Hello. Yes. So let us look at the charter. What is business case? Business case is a simple English. Why is the project important? Why is the project worth doing? Why it is important to do it now? What are the consequences if I don't do it? What are the other areas of priorities and how it is linked with the business goal? So I always keep on saying from your last session only, whenever you take up any project, you must verify that this project or this improvement is in alignment with my business objective. So how it is going to help the business, that you write down as a business case. It can be, few of the consultants also write that as an opportunity statement. So business case is why I am basically doing this project in simple English lines, 4 lines. Okay. Once you write that, you have to convert that problem. What is exactly pinching you in terms of the numbers? So you have to represent everything in terms of the numbers. Okay. So that is what is your problem statement is. What is wrong? Not meeting the customer needs in terms of the numbers is an problem statement. You can combine problem and goal statement also. So how the goal statement is written? The goal statement is generally written in a smart way. You must have heard the acronym SMART. SMART is specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. Okay, so that is all covers. This is all being covered in a charter. So it has to be, your goal has to be, or metric, what you want to improve has to be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. Now, when you are taking up any goal, on what basis or how you have to select a goal, that is very important and has been emphasized in Six Sigma. So there are 3 ways to select the goal statement. So the goal statement is generally, or goal, how I select the target. So the target is selected basically on 3 criteria. What is an entitlement in the process? So what is the entitlement means what is the best achieved by the process. Now suppose I want to improve my timing for 100-meter running. Okay, so when I am running every day, I am booking my time, and what I will try to take as a project is best achieved for 3-4 days. So once I achieved that, I will take next step. There is no point in taking an huge target or unrealistic target to meet Hussein Bolt's record. So what will be my first step is I will have to look at it at what is my entitlement in the process. So what is my best timing so far? So what is my best timing? It probably I have a variation from 10.1 second to 12.2 seconds. Okay, so what I will do, when how many times I have achieved 10.1? So I have achieved 10.1 on 8 occasions in 30 days. So let us take 10.1. Let us take target to achieve 10.1 on a consistently basis. So once I try to move my average towards 10.1, naturally, when I say average 10.1, it covers a variation of 9.5 to 10.5. So ultimately, I get a best next. So this is the first method. What is my entitlement in the process? Now the second method is, what is a benchmark? Now, if I want to qualify for certain meet, and my 10 point or 9.8 is the requirement to qualify that meet at national level, then I have to attend that as a 9.8. What is a benchmark? What are others doing? Or what I have in mind? So there is a second type where I have an benchmark available and I have to attend that benchmark. Thirdly, what is the design of a process? Now, if you have a reactor, you have set up a new reactor, and when you have set up that new reactor, you are expecting, or theoretically, you have calculated that it is expected to give me 10 metric tons of product, and you are not able to achieve that, you are around 80, 85, 90 or somewhere, then it becomes mandatory for you to take up on what is design capacity of the project, design capacity of the reactor. So when you are taking up a goal, the goal is generally based on three criteria: what is the entitlement in the process, what is the benchmark of the process, and what is the design of the process. Based on that, generally the goal is decided. So once you achieve that goal, are you able to save? There are two types of savings from the project. One is called as an hard saving, and other is called as soft saving, or tangible or intangible. So tangible benefit is what, in terms of the organization, what is directly getting converted into money in the books of accounts is we call as a tangible benefit. Ultimately, everything is money. Somebody is, I am conducting your session, it is ultimately it is a money, but it is an intangible money. So probably I'm not able, I will not be able to claim that this has reflected, this session has reflected in books of accounts like this. So that we call as an intangible money. So there are two types of benefits: tangible and intangible. Tangible, which get directly converted into books of accounts. Then the team is generally formed based on the army model. So what is this army is? The army is approver. So when you take up a project, you will find out something that I need to keep a reactor temperature, or I need to change some process. Okay, so there has to be somebody in your team, approver, as a sponsor or a process owner or a champion, who will approve that, yes, yeah, go ahead and do it, implement that, I am with you. So he is an approver. The second type of a person is a resource. So he has an expertise in that process, and will always tell you some of the tricks or some of the excess which has got a relationship with your why, and you are going to capture those inputs to improve your process. That is what is a resource. The member is again आपके साथ कंधे पे कंधा लगा के काम करेगा. Will collect the data for you, conduct the team meetings, probably if you are on the leave, give you a feedback that this is not being done, which was a part of our project, etc., etc. Is a member. And the fourth is very important, is an interested party who is interested out of this. Now suppose if you are working on any project where you are reducing and packing cost. Okay, so if you are reducing the packing cost, actually marketing person will not be involved in this process, but marketing person will be always interested in knowing what you are doing in changes and packing. So that is what is called as an informed party or influencing party, to be included as an team member. So once you have a team, you have to write down the milestones. Generally, I will explain you when I will explain you the exact charter. So how the milestones are being set up. So let us look at a practical example of a charter. So the project is about the reducing the electricity consumption at your home. So very easy. Everybody gets an electricity bill every month. So the optimum link with your personal life. So reduce electricity consumption at your home. So what is my business case is, the electricity bill is paid up as a monthly expenses, and if I reduce that electricity bill, my money will be saved. Okay, you may call it as an operating cost, etc., etc. Now come to a problem or a goal statement. So I have written problem and goal statement. You can write down problem and goal statement together also. So it is very important to understand what is a unit now. Now, when we talk about the electricity bill, we always get in strike, or we always comes to our minds is rupees per month. Now you have done some good work, and actually your units, you have reduced the units, but the electricity board has changed the tariff for your units. So will that reflect in your rupees per month? No. So whenever you are taking up any project, be sure that your work will directly get reflected in that unit. So in this case, when you are talking about the actual electricity bill rupees, but you will be working on units. So probably units per month is a good problem or good unit to be considered for. Then if you have a project or you have an CTQ which is coming after a month, units per month, then probably your feedback mechanism will take a longer time and your project completion will also take a longer time. So it is better to cut that into a smaller pieces and get a feedback from a process as early as possible, so it can be converted into units per day. So if I write out, I have to write down my problem statement. What I will write: the number of units used for the period of January 9 to April 9. I'm clearly specifying the period, because when you are writing down here, it may happen that you have taken up a project in a suburb and improved that into a winter. Okay, so that is why it has to be approved by a process owner or champion. And whenever you are declaring that data, you are declaring a sample out of your total population. So you have to declare or select that sample as an part of an population. The sample should represent the population. That is most important. That is why you are specifying the period also. So here I have clearly specified the period. It is from January to April. Average is 45 units per day with standard deviation of 12 units, etc. Now, what is my goal statement is, you can combine that also. The goal is to reduce it to 40 units per day by December. So the problem and goal statement will not give the blame how you are going to do it. At this moment, what is your problem? Your problem is your unit consumption is high. What is why? The effect is unit number of units used are high. So when you are writing about the charter, you are specifically talking about only why. You are no way concerned what are the excess. इसका reason क्या है, ये क्या है? That is nothing is part of an charter. So your specific focus is on why. When you are talking about and define and measure phase, the specific focus is only on a why. So here I am also mentioning my why as an effect. So effect is higher number of units consumed. Okay, so that is how the problem and goal statement to be written. If I achieve that, what will be my cost reduction? It may be a revenue generation, it may be a cost reduction, etc., etc. So you can categorize that and write down. Now come to a right side, project scope. What scope? So there are two areas were mentioned here. The process starts with and process ends with. And what is in scope and what is out scope? So probably it talks about the boundaries of the process. If you want to improve any process, there are two ways, only two ways by which you can improve the process. So you can study the process. The physical boundary of the process means, if suppose you are talking, you go to a any shopping mall and you want to improve a billing process. So what is exactly the time is? So the time in a queue or average time taken by each customer for billing is your problem statement. You want to reduce it by 20% is your goal statement. Now where the exact physical process starts? So the physical process starts and you are going to exactly examine that process, which is called as where my process starts with and where my process ends with. In this case, it is your meter to consumption of a meter. So if anything happening before your meter, you are least bothered about it. So where your process exactly starts and where your process exactly ends. So this is a focus on the process. And when I say in scope and out scope, my focus is what are the inputs which are coming to the process and affecting my output. So what type of inputs I am going to consider, and what is in scope and what is out scope. So when I say in scope, whether I am going to consider all the festival days, all days in the year, Or if I know there is a Diwali coming up, and during the Diwali, my day-to-day bill is going to be more. So whether I wish to outscope that. So if you outscope that as an festival days here, you may have to go to correct the data, the problem statement also, excluding your festival days. So what you are going to consider in scope and out scope has to be very clearly written down, mental boundary of the process. And while insta starts with and ends with is the physical boundary of the process. Okay, once you finalize that, the next is a very important parameter. What is your constraint CTQ and secondary CTQ, or which is also called as in secondary CTQ by some people. So the way it should not be done. Now, look at this project. I want to reduce my electricity bill. I am analyzing that how I am spending my electricity, and I came to the know that I am ironing my clothes at home, and I came with a bright idea that I start giving it to laundry wala. So will that reduce my electricity consumption? Yes. But then what is your constant CTQ? Is your laundry bill or medical bill to remain constant? So the way it should not be done has to be declared very upfront in the project. If I am reducing my packing cost, my damages will not go up. So what are the consequences? I want to increase my production. If I increase my production, my quality will remain constant. So that is how you have to very well declare what is your secondary CTQ, and also keep on monitoring your secondary CTQ chart. That is very important. The next is what is the process impacted and a business why impacted. Now in business case, I have mentioned that in English, that key how it is related within business objective. So what is written in a business case is in English has to be converted into numbers in a financial benefit, and you have to also write here what is a business effect. So whether it is a cost reduction, revenue generation, customer satisfaction, employee engagement, environmental effect, etc., etc. So generally organizations has that 6 or 7 big high level why, and you mention that, and then what is a big why impacted. Okay, so if it is an generally internal customer, it is always on the cost reduction. Okay, here the project is also on a cost reduction, because we are trying to reduce the electricity bill, that will save the cost. So once you have that, you have to form a team. Who is a green belt, who is a black belt, who is a champion process owner, based on your army model. Then a timelines. Coming to a timeline, generally a defined phase takes 1 week. If the data is available, the measure will also take 1 week. It is very important to understand and analyze the data. What are my excess which are going to make effect using a statistical tool? So probably it will take 6 to 8 weeks. And again, if you improve the process, then it is three weeks. And if it is a monthly data, then in this case, suppose I take up a project of an units per month, then it is very important for me to sustain it at least for 3 months, because how the process owner and champion will certify my project is completed only based on some consistent data. So if you take a monthly data, it will take a longer duration to complete your project. So it is always generally recommended to close the project on a daily basis. Or if you have then 30 days data, probably you will close that project in a 1 month as a control phase. So that is how the charter look like, and charter gives an visibility of everything, and the champion and the process owner must certify that yes, this is right, because ultimately what will happen, this is in scope, this is out scope, should not come when you complete the project. So it has to be very clear. Generally the champion or the process owner is involved in charter writing. Okay, so he has to give you टीम को उसने प्रोजेक्ट का चार्टर बना के देना चाहिए, मुझे ये करके चाहिए, ये मेरा टारगेट है, ये तुम्हारा स्कोप है, ये कॉन्सिक्वेंशियल मैट्रिक्स है और ये टीम है, लाइक दैट, और ये टाइमलाइन से. Okay, so once you complete your project, charter, the next step is what is the process look like. So let us move to the process mapping. That is what is called as a process mapping. It is also one of the tool in basic 7QC tools. So what are the objectives? This is a third question we are answering. The first question was, who is my customer? That we have considered using a voice of customer. Then we have converted that voice of customer to CTQ to write down a charter. So what is my plan? And now third question of the define phase is, how does the process look like? So how does the process look like? The objectives are, what is actual process versus documented process. So if you look at the ISO 9000 structure, there is something different which is documented, and what is being actually done is different. So we need to verify using a process map that what is actually being done and what is documented. But when we are writing in a Six Sigma project, we are writing down what is actually done in a process. So what are the steps which are value added steps or non value added steps, and what are the process inputs and the outputs of the process? So the generally we'll look at that as an example. Again, वैसे हम लोग इलेक्ट्रिसिटी बिल का चार्टर में एग्जांपल लिया, वैसे we'll consider one of the process to understand this, how it can be done at 3 levels. So hello. So demonstrate the process is at 3 levels. One is called as a macro map, then process flow diagram, and detailed input output worksheet. So what is high level view or a macro map, which is called as an SIPOC. So what is SIPOC? Is supplier, input, process, output, and customer. Is a big picture, high level. Somebody is looking at Mumbai from an helicopter view. Then probably the next step is process flow diagram. Like earlier also I said, in a BPM process, it is a business level, then operational level, and then a process step. So the next step is an operational level, where rooftop, or we have a micro view of the process. So how the process moves, input output to the each step, etc., etc. And then at the third operation or a process step, we will understand the inputs for each process and what can go wrong. So that is what is the benefit of an process mapping. So let us go and look at the details. So business process is generally a SIPOC. It is also called as an COPIS. This is an G terminology where they used to say as an COPIS. Why? Because the thinking should come from a customer. So they call it as an COPIS. But the physical movement of the process is from supplier to customer. Okay, so it is very simple. You have a process in front of you, then there are inputs, and who are the suppliers, what are the output, and the customer. Okay, even the customers are internal also. The next step also, you are going to call them as a customer. Now the Six Sigma emphasizes this on this as much, because when we talk about the customer, we always talk about the external customer. We have in mind is about an external customer. But when you are doing a SIPOC, for your project, probably you will be calling your next step as a customer. Now this is how the traditionally physically the process moves. But but COPIS also is very important to understand on business processes. Now suppose somebody wants to set up any businessman who wants to set up an polypropylene plant in India. Okay, so looking at the existing capacities, markets, etc., he will look whether there will be customers for this. Okay, so the first test for any business process, the first step which comes as a customer. So will there be anybody who will buy a polypropylene from me if I set up some plant? Okay, so once he has then few people, customers, how much output they will buy? Based on that, what will be the process capacity? Then what will be the inputs and who will be the supplier? So when I am having a business process, it goes on a COPIS model. So it is very also important to keep in mind a COPIS scope. Now, this is what is an helicopter view. Now you are on a rooftop. So what is a process flow diagram? Typically, since you are doing your engineering, you must have come across the process and instrumentation diagram. So it is like an P&ID. So what are the steps in the process involved? And probably you will look at the what is the concept, what is the ideal one, and what is the reality. So what is the reality is really rare for you, and you try to eliminate the steps based on the ideal process or the concept in the process. That is what you will try to find out when you are going through an PNID. Now the third part is what are the inputs coming to each process and what is the output from each step of the process. So let us understand uh, a simple example of making a cup of tea. So when we are trying to make a cup of tea, what is the SIPOC? So just look at the SIPOC. The P process is tea preparation process. For the tea preparation, there are various inputs which are coming, which is water, milk, sugar, tea powder, tea masala, gas, utensil, manpower, etc. And I also written down who are the suppliers and who is the what is the output and who are the customers for this. Now, what is the next step? The next step is to have a process flow diagram for an tea making process. So when I am writing down a process flow diagram, I am actually writing down what I will do. So what I will do, I will take utensil, pour a major quantity of water, gas, sugar, etc., etc. So all the steps which are involved in making a tea process. This is process flow diagram. Now, what is the next step? Next step is understanding the inputs of the process. Okay, so I am going one by one. So raw material. So what are the raw materials for an tea making process? So there are various raw materials which are required for an tea making process, which is water, milk, sugar, or tea. Now, what is important question to understand is quantity of water. So when I say water, you cannot simply say water. So what exactly you mean by water? So you mean quantity of water. So whether the change in quantity of water will make the difference on t-test? So if yes, this becomes your potential reason. Now, when you are starting up any project, this is also very important to collect the what are the potential excess for your why. So in this process, when you are mapping a process, you are going through all the inputs for each and every step and try to understand what are the potential excess and gather all those potential excess from the process to validate in the analyze phase whether that will make sense. Right now, when you are not thinking that whether this makes a effect or not effect, so you are only considering that yes, this can make effect, then this is your potential x. Now in this case, if your quantity of water is not written specifically, somebody is taking full cup, somebody is taking half cup, is your going tea taste going to change? Yes, then it is a potential reason. Then in a milk, how much quantity of milk, which type of milk, cow milk, buffalo milk, powder milk, malai milk, is it going to have an impact on the taste? Yes. So these are all potential reasons. Then sugar, quantity, thin sugar, thick sugar, sugar cube, sugar mixed with white powder, etc. So what I'm trying to do for all these raw materials, I'm capturing all the potential excess as a process map. Now let us move to the next step. Uh, First was raw material or information. Next was an equipment. So utensils. So which type of utensil I am going to use? Whether aluminium, copper, or stainless steel. If changing a utensil is going to impact my tea taste, then I consider this as an X. Otherwise, not. Then heating device. This is impactful. If I do it using a gas burner, electric kettle, kerosene stove, or chula, is going to impact my tea taste. So it is. These are my all potential excess. Then if you go to the filter, what is filter size? How much is the life of the filter? So these can also make a change in my tea taste. So these are my potential excess. That is how you have to capture all your potential excess is an exercise using process map. Now, why it is important? If you do it using a process map concept, probably you will not miss out any X. So if you go and just list down or do a brainstorming, you will collect all the X's. But when you are going in a systematic stepwise manner, the idea here is to not to miss out any X, so that this time aisa ho gaya kya is not an excuse of an Six Sigma project. Okay, so that is what we are trying to do it in a systematic manner. Now look at an SOP. When to add sugar, how much time to boil, when to add milk. So every home has a different process. So probably it will be all different. So whether they make change on the t-test, if yes, then they are your potential reasons, and you will capture them as an potential reasons and screen them going to a next step when you are actually analyzing the problem using a statistical tools or a data driven process. So that is what is an importance of an process map. So how the process map is to be done? The process map is to understand the process as well as to collect all the potential excess from the process. Now, this is typically in a transactional process. The process map is called as a swim lane map. So why swim lane map? The probably a swim lane map because in swimming competition, the swimmer swims in his own lane. And if he crosses the lane, it is called as a foul. So you have a departments as in swim lane: user, purchase, manufacturing, store, and inspection. So probably everybody swims in his own lane and completes the work what is assigned to their department. So that is what is an objective or thinking process behind a swim lane map, to understand who is doing what and what is coming after what, etc. So simple, this process map can be used for any of the activities. If you are having a picnic, seminar, etc., etc., you have to have a process map. And what are the inputs which are coming to the process, and what are the potential inputs which can fail, you are identifying them as an potential reasons. So conducting a meeting or organizing a meeting, there are 14 or 25 steps in organizing a meeting. So process flow. Okay, so this is how the process flow starts. Then now we are moving to a major phase. So there are three main questions which are asked in a major phase. What is the best way to measure? Or in a Six Sigma typical of parlance, and define performance standards. Or step 5 is establish data collection plan or measurement system analysis. So can I trust my output data, or is measurement system variation within limit? And the next step or third step of the major step is establish the process capability. How good I am today. So probably we will cover 4 and 5 steps today, and take up 6 steps during our next session. So what is the best way to measure? So the picture in front of you is self-explanatory. One must establish what is the best way to measure. That is why measuring system, because everybody has a different perspective about the process, and he will take the measurements at different places. So one has to have a clear-cut view on what is the best way to measure the process. Then defines performance standard. It is also very clearly written how you are going to measure. Now to give a simple example, calculate yield. Now, when I say I want to improve the yield of the process, there are two ways. Even in our industry, there are two ways which are being followed to calculate yield. One is input versus output. मतलब मैंने कितना डाला और कितना बाहर आया, उतना मेरा yield हो गया. So basically your mass balance. Okay. So mass balance में how much is my input, how much is my output. If it is not matching, मैं मतलब मेरा product कितना आया, so how much product I have got, out of the input, that is what is called as an yield. The second way of calculating yield is production divided by production plus waste. This is typically being done in a polyester industry, the second formula of yield. Now, both of the formulas are right. There is no argument in it. But how you have calculated yield used during this project has to be clearly written down. And that is what is an upmost thing which is emphasized in major phase. What is how we are going to measure, and is my measurement system reliable? That is what we are going to establish in a major phase. So to give you an example, if suppose somebody wants to define a lunch time, how will you define lunch time? So somebody can say, I leave my desk and come back to the desk is my lunch time. The boss may say like this. Somebody will say, I enter the canteen, I come out of the canteen is my lunch time. Now both of them are right. I'm not there to debate on that which is right or which is wrong. I am only going to ask you that how you have calculated the lunch time in this project, so that you have an apple to apple comparison afterwards, and you declare that as an defined performance standard, that I am going to calculate yield like this, or I am going to calculate my cycle time based on this. That is why you are clearly writing down in a charter where my process starts and where my process ends. Okay, based on that you will probably write down a cycle time, yield, etc., etc. But it has to be clearly come as a formula. That is what is mean as an how you are going to measure. The second part is whether your data is discrete or continuous. There are two types of data. Discrete means countable, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So give an example, how many people wearing yellow shirt out of 100 in a class. So they're probably countable. It cannot be 4.5. It can be either 4 or 5. So how many people pass the exam? Okay, this is called as a discrete data. But continuous data, which is measurable data, weight, time, is an continuous data, or yield or percentage. Like I give you an example of a discrete data where how many people, how many students passed in an exam is in discrete data, where you will say 15 people pass in an exam. But it is better to have and more information about the data by converting the data from discrete to continuous data. So my CTQ may be how many percentage of people pass, so that 15 gets converted into probably 50%, 75%, etc., etc. So I get in clarity that 15 passed of out of how many. When the percentage is 50, I will say out of 30. But the information, when I say only 15 people pass, I don't get more information about it. So it is better to convert data from discrete data to continuous data, so that we get more information about the same. Okay, is the data collected from the system or manually? So typically in many of the industries the data is collected manually. So is that manual observation right? Like I shown you the picture earlier, where to exactly measure the belly width. So is that collected system by system or manually? If it is collected by system, it is fairly a good measurement system. But if it is done manually, you need to go and understand whether the two appraisers or two inspectors in your process are doing in a same way or different way. So what is the defect definition? So generally we set up a goal. When we set up a goal, the defect definition comes with that. So if I have a target, which is means suppose I taken a project, my yield is 95 and my target is 97. So what is the defect definition here? Anything below 97 is my defect, because I have taken up target as 97. Now that also you have written clearly in the charter. So when you in a charter you write a goal statement, you make your defect definition very clear. So on any day, if my yield is less than 97, I am going to call it as a defect. So that is how you have to call it as a defect definition. It is very important to understand a defect definition, because based on the defect definition, the capability of the process can be decided. Okay. So why measurement system basically? So this has been emphasized in Six Sigma very much. Why measurement system? Because there is an observed variation in the process. Now, out of that observed variation, what is an actual variation in the process and what is a measurement system variation in the process? Now, if suppose you observed some variation in the process, and if that variation in the process is more because of your measurement system, your watch is not correct or your weighment scale is not correct, etc., etc., there is no point in going and improving your actual process unless that measurement system variation process is within limit. Very important. Because what we observe, we feel that it is an actual process variation, but Six Sigma emphasizes that what is your measurement system variation, and if the measurement system variation is within limit, then only you go for actual improvement in the process. So how it can be done? So to break down, you have a total variation in the process, out of which some is actual variation in the process, the sum is measurement system variation in the process. Now we are concerned about this measurement system variation in the process. Why measurement system variation in the process? Because of accuracy and precision of the data. So what is accuracy means? There is a bias in your measuring system. Your weighing scale, probably you are talking about the yield in metric tons, and your weighing scale has a bias. So you are going to check whether there is a bias in your weighing scale or not. Stability, is it stable over the period, or periodically it is being checked by instrument department or calibrated, etc. It is a stability. Linearity means throughout the scale, means my scale is 1000 kg. So if I put 100 kg and if I put 800 kilo, is it going to give me the same bias, or my bias is going to increase with the more weight? So throughout my measurement capacity, means the maximum capacity of the scale is 1000, is it going to be same everywhere? That is what is the linearity. Generally we check up all that using an instrumental, means calibration, etc., etc. Schedules are always there to check up all these, but what is most important is on the precision. So we generally check up what is repeatability and reproducibility. It is very important when we are checking manually something. So in our class 12 also, when we are doing some titration, the same solution is with you and your friend, but he gets a 10.2 reading and you get a 10.1 reading. Okay, so what is that basically? Basically a same sample checked by two inspectors. So if the same sample is checked by two inspectors, whether that is matching, that is what is called an reproducibility. We'll come to that, what is repeatability and what is reproducibility. And the same sample is being checked by you again on the next day. Are you going to give the same reading? So suppose if you are doing a titration, and today, or you are declaring some analysis in a chemical laboratory where you declare today that 10.2 is the value. Now the same person using same measurement system, same characteristics, same setup, same environmental condition, declares 10.2 tomorrow also. That is what is called as an repeatability. This exercise is actually being done in a laboratory to understand that whether my measurement system is repeatable or and reproducible or not. Okay, and if suppose there are 2-3 inspectors or 2-3 analysts doing the pH or titration, something like that. So the same sample is analyzed by a second person, is that analysis matches, there will be always variation. But if that variation, whether that variation is within limit or not, that is what is the question which is being asked here. So repeatability, reproducibility, variations will be always there, but whether they are in limit. So if they are in limit, then you can go ahead in the project. That is what is asked here. So if you look at this, if the variation of repeatability and reproducibility, let us talk about an attribute data first. So if the repeatability is more than, means variation is more than 10%, it is not acceptable. If reproducibility is also more than 10%, it is not acceptable, and accuracy is also more than 10, it is not acceptable. That is what is an attribute data. I will explain you how attribute data calculation is being done. And then in a continuous data, if the variation is less than 10%, you say, okay, it is green signal. But if it is 10 to 30%, you will have to ask the champion or a process owner whether we should proceed in the project or not. And if it is more than 10%, 30%, straight away you have to set right your measurement system perfect and then go for a project. Because if the measurement system variation itself is more than 30%, there is no point in going and improving the process. It may happen that you will do a lot of work, but actually processes will not improve because there is a measurement system variation in the process. The another point which is very important, which one slide I skipped, which is called as the number of distinct categories, or the least count of the measuring process. Now, if I recall, or I give you an example of an old 1984 Olympics where PT Usha lost, rather PT Usha or India lost their bronze medal by 100 second. 100 second. So she was declared 4 because a 0.001 second was the measurement system was able to count that 0.00 second, not 1 second, and she was declared 4th. So the sensitivity of the measurement system. So it is very important also to check the resolution of the measurement system. So your measurement system resolution should pass the criteria, and if you look at the results, it is mentioned here as a distinct category. So when we do a statistical analysis using Minitab, it gives you a number as a number of distinct categories, which is nothing but the resolution of the system. Now, if the resolution of the system is more than 4, you can go ahead in the project. 3 to 4, it is an orange signal. Literally, it is an orange signal. If while we are driving, if there is an orange signal, sometimes we go and sometimes we stop. But if it is red, you are not supposed to move. And if it is green, you can go straight away. That is how you have to interpret it like this. So now the distinct categories is more than 4. It is nothing but a resolution of the process. Now it is very important to understand that every time you may not require the 100 second to be counted. Now this is, as you see on the screen, this is a 100 meters race and everybody is close by, and that is why I gave you an example of PT Usha, because she was declared 4th only because the 100 second was being counted by a measurement system. Now, if you look at a race of a marathon, so marathon or 800 meters, so marathon probably takes 2 hours. So in that case, it is not important to count at 100 seconds. So it depends on the variation in the process. So how much is first and how much is the last? What is the range of the process? And based on that, you have to decide the measurement system resolution. So that is how it is. Now just look at an attribute data example and then we'll close today. So this is an attribute data example, and where what is attribute data example? Attribute data example is generally pass or fail. Okay, so what I have shown you here is there is a column called operator 1. Okay, so operator 1, I have 14 samples, and the operator 1, so I have operator 1, try 1. So these are his observations when he is looking at these 14 samples. What is his say on a try 1? So he says pass, pass, fail, fail, fail on a try 1. Now the same sample is given to him on the next day. What is his observation is? Okay. So this is his try 2. Similarly for operator 1, try 1, operator 2, try 2, operator 3, try 1, and operator 3, try 2. And there is an also, since this is an attribute data, the accuracy or expert's opinion is also available here. Okay. So what is repeatability? So repeatability means the operator in his first observation should match with his second observation. So in this case, operator 1 first observation matches with operator 2, it is 100%. So he is repeatable. But if you look at the operator 2, he matches only 78%. So where is the problem? The operator 2 has a problem in a consistency. Again, operator 3 is matching 100%. Okay. Now I am talking about reproducibility. So this was about repeatability, whether his two observations are matching. Now his two observations are matching with other two operators. That is what is called as an repeatability. Reproducibility. So reproducibility, if you look at this, first two operators say pass, he says fail, it is not matching. He is consistent, but his observation is not matching with the other operators as well as the expert's opinion. So this is what is, we call it as an operator by parts. Means operator 3 has a problem understanding type part 1 sample. Okay. So how we check reproducibility? We match 6. This 6 column is called reproducibility. This reproducibility is only 57%, and we check that with an expert's opinion. So we match all these 7 is called as an accuracy. So this is a live example what I have done in polyester plant. So when there are so many inspectors inspecting, doing a visual experimentation or visual inspection, there is always a chance that your measurement system variation is very high. So it is very important to understand that how much is my measurement system variation, and based on that, if your measurement system variation is beyond certain limits, you cannot really proceed in the project. That is what is a nutshell takeaway. So we'll not be able to cover the capability today because it will take another half an hour. So we'll close here. Any questions so far?
So can you explain these calculations again?
These calculations. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So you have understood operator 1, try 1, try 2.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Operator 2, try 1, try 2.
Yes, sir.
Operator 3, try 1, try 2.
Yes.
Now, so how many times operator 1, try 1 and try 2 is matching? That is 100%. Out of 14, every time his observation is matching. That is how it is 100%.
Correct.
Okay. In operator 2, it is matching only 80%. Just look at the numbers.
With the known attributes, right?
Yeah. Same sample he is doing on a day 1 and same sample he is doing on a day 2. The third sample is not matching. His observation is not matching. Fifth sample, it is not matching. So how much percentage times he is matching? That is what is that percentage is. Okay.
Then why is the score for operator 3 again 100%? Because
operator
Three. It didn't match to the attribute in the first try, like first one.
Where one? Where?
The
This is
first
about,
column, first row.
hello, this is about within himself. He's try one and he's try two. Hello. This is
Yes,
repeatability. Operator 3 is repeatability. His own observation on day 1 and day 2.
got it.
That is why it
And
is 100%. Yes.
and then
And then
how?
this column is 6-way matching. Okay. And this
Got it.
column is 7-way matching. Got
Got
it?
it. Yes, sir.
So any other question?
So, can you explain what exactly in-scope and out-scope is, sir,
In scope and out scope is.
in the chart?
Yes. Whenever you are taking up any project, if you want to improve your process, probably there are two ways to improve a process. One is the process. What is bad with the process? Actual process. Suppose I am talking about the transactional process, billing process, etc., etc. So what is bad about that process? Okay. And then what is in scope is what are the inputs which are coming to the process. Now suppose you are doing some chemical analysis or paraxylene plant. Okay. So in you are producing paraxylene. Now one is a aspect is a process, and second is what is the naphtha which is coming to the process. Now typically why I am giving you example, Reliance Pataganga gets naphtha from three organizations. One is HP, BP, and Reliance. Now if the inputs coming to the process are bad, or if I in feed a bad quality of naphtha to the process, my output is going to change. So if typically I am going to look at the in scope or in what are the inputs coming to the process, I am going to consider them as an in scope process or out scope process. So typically, suppose some vendor is giving you a naphtha. In this our example of Pataganga paraxylene plant, if Reliance Jamnagar is giving us the naphtha, my output is coming low. Okay. So whether when I am totally considering a project, whether I am going to consider input of Reliance also or not. That is what is the meaning of an in scope and out scope. You got it?
Yes, sir.
Or confused?
Bit of confused, sir.
So what are the inputs which are coming to the, there will be different vendors giving input to the process. So are you going to select all or not? Typically, if you look at an, suppose we are looking at a chart of your performance in the exam. Okay. So when you are writing you are writing an exam, you are expected to be well fit, do not have fever, etc. On a typical one exam, you are not well and you are having a fever and you appear for an exam. Now the question is whether you are going to consider that output in scope or out scope. If you say ki there is a specific reason for this output, I am not going to consider this in scope. So you may, when I am fine and fit, my score in the exam. Okay.
Yes, sir. Got it.
Okay. So typically these things happen in the organization. That is why it is very clearly to understand, because if suppose I am trying to improve yield or I am trying to improve the paraxylene production, many of the times it may happen that when I collect the data, that is why I said where you have collected the baseline data has to be a representative sample of the population. Now suppose I am getting a good naphtha from BP and my paraxylene production is 350. And if suppose I start getting an inferior naphtha from some other industry, my output product drops down to 300 per day. Now, if that is a known relationship, I will say my Reliance NAFTA is my outscope. And I will consider only project when it is a BP NAFTA or HP NAFTA. Then if you outscope my Reliance NAFTA, then it is very important for you to also write down your baseline statement again or baseline calculations again, excluding the Reliance NAFTA. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
So can you explain once more what are reactive and proactive systems?
What are reactive systems? मतलब हो जाने के बाद, what is the meaning of reactive? The incident has already happened. So probably when a voice of customer is reactive, means it is based on the customer complaint. Or customer complaint is a way of a reactive. The material is already sold, it is bad, and the customer is complaining. Is a reactive mode. Okay, help desk calls, emails, yeah, sales data, warranty claims, or product returns is a reactive mode of information. While what are the proactive modes of information? Getting interview of an customer to understand whether he is satisfied with the product or not. Like, isn't proactive modes.
Got it, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Sir, can you please explain difference between repeatability and reproducibility again?
Repeatability means the same sample examined by a same person in a same environment tomorrow again. Means if you are doing any titration, simple titration, मतलब एसिड और बेस का कैलकुलेशन कर रहे हो, आपका रीडिंग आज 10.1 आया, तो वही दोनों सॉल्यूशंस का अगर इफ यू आर रिपीटिंग दैट टाइट्रेशन टुमारो आल्सो, योर रीडिंग हैज टू बी 10.1. दैट इज व्हाट इज द रिपीटेबिलिटी. Okay,
sir.
There will be always variation. This is only happens in a theoretical environment where 10.1 today is again 10.1 tomorrow. If you know that what was your reading yesterday, but if you have been told that these are the fresh samples, probably you will give 10.2 reading tomorrow. So there will be variation, but whether that variation is within limit, that is what we are trying to find out. And then what is reproducibility? Now you have 4 students doing an analysis. Now you produce 10.1, another produce 10.2, another produce 10. So are they matching each other? That is what is the reproducibility. Okay?
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Welcome. Anything else?
Can you please tell us the focus of the Kano model?
Focus of the Canner model is to understand the requirement of an customer is of which type.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so there are 3 types of categories of any product. Whether it is must be, whether it is more the better, or it is a delighter. Means by giving this product to the customer, his needs are going to be, must be needs are going to satisfy, or is he going to be happy or delighted? These are the 3 terminologies which are being used in happy, dissatisfier, happy, and delighted. So what is delighted is he was not expecting anything and you gave him that is delighted. More the better is satisfier. And must be is there are minimum requirements of the product. If you don't give those in the product, he is dissatisfied. So if you look at that arrow also, it is in dissatisfaction zone. But if must be present, it doesn't cross from a non-satisfaction zone to a satisfaction zone. Okay, so must be has to be there in a to remain you in the business. So when I say TV, it should give me picture. When I say phone, it should give me sound. Like that is a must be.
Okay.
Okay.
Got it, sir.
Yes, anything else? Okay, then if there are no questions, we'll close down for today.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Nikhil. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.